Just a quick overview, just between kind of government and private. A lot of people come out of colleges looking for ideally government jobs, Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management, counties, whatever. That's where I got my start out of college. But a lot of federal jobs have been eliminated. A lot of those grants have dried up. So you're probably going to have more opportunities in the private side, and that comes with some expectations. It's a faster paced job. We have to work quickly to keep our clients happy with their projects moving forward, work within the regulations. It's not for everyone though. So you need to understand that if you have, I had one high school friend. I have one high school friend who worked for us for a couple of years. She worked at the Forest Service and then tried our job out for a while. And she said, Francis, I just don't like developers. I just don't like land being developed. I said, Karen, it's okay. You can. So she left and went back to the National Park Service, where I think she retired. But it's not for everyone, because you have to realize that things are going to get developed, and you're going to be working for your clients to help them through that process. Hopefully, with meeting all the environmental codes and rules at the same time, helping them achieve their project, which comes down to a bottom line of did they spend enough. Did they spend not enough money to save money to get through the end of the project and still have it be successful for them? So you have to, and whether you have, whatever your politics are about the environment, that's great. When you do this job, you have to be very objective about the science, because that's what it comes down to. And you can't inject your politics into this job. You just have to know that. And we expect everybody to, whatever you want to do outside, it's fine, but with the jobs you're working on, you have to be very straight down the line, objective, work on the science, work on the policy, and do kind of what we're trying to help for our client.
One little tidbit with the private sector versus government. I was just talking to a project manager at the Corps of Engineers who just went into the private sector, and he said two big differences were that at the core level or the government level, you only get to see one little portion of the project. You don't get to see it from beginning to end, like we get to on the private sector. Also, he realized that he didn't get to see how the other agencies kind of work and collaborate together, because they just are making sure the core boxes are checked. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Entry level and private consulting. Oh, since they have this, what the job really looks like. You get a phone call. They want you to look at a site to see if they can build on it. So you give them a budget that you will come up with. A lot of training and guidance if you're just beginning. And there'll be timelines that you don't have a lot of control over. Hopefully you can try to have control over them. And then you learn the codes. You read them for all the agencies that you have to read them for. A lot of juggling. You have to juggle a lot of personalities, a lot of agencies, who are engineers, traffic specialists, sounds, but all these people, and we're just the critical area. We're just a small part of it, but the project has a lot of parts.
We'll do the field work, obviously.
Yeah.
So we'll do the field work. That's typically the basis of our work. Is collect information on where the wetlands are at, get them delineated, rate the wetlands, determine what the buffers are going to be. Then if they have to impact that wetland or the buffer, what the mitigation has to be. And then if it goes to either an administrative decision by the local planner or whatever, then they use our reports for that. Oftentimes our reports go out into the public and are publicly reviewed on SEPA comments. That's a State Environmental Policy Act for Washington State. So that is a public chance for people to weigh in on the project that you're working on. They may not like the project. It may be they think it's obtrusive to their neighbor because they live next door to that site. Or oftentimes we hear this from people who own a house. They said, well, the real estate agent told me that land behind my house would never be developed. Well, we hear that all the time. In reality, the real estate agent had no business saying that in the first place, because they don't know, but they're just trying to make the sale of the property. So we hear that a lot. The goal is to ultimately successfully get the client their permits to build the project. and do the mitigation, whether they're by bank credits, or they plant plants on site, or they restore a stream. There's a whole bunch of things that we may be involved in, and ultimately, if we can do it and they can still make money on it, and we get paid, and we give them a scope of work and we can meet that, everything works out. So, but you know, all projects, I think all projects eventually go sideways at one point or the other, and that's just something you have to expect. Good.
For ELS and basically any job, ethics and expectations, obviously you be professional at all times. Is we're going to talk about kinds of different agendas. Knowing your laws and regulations is really, really key. Will save you a lot of time. That being said, they will change all the time. So you work on this project for 3 years in this one jurisdiction, and you know it. Now you know everything about it, and then you go over there that jurisdiction, you're going to be heads like me, or they'll change. Being humble is very important. It's most important to know you don't know the answer and just admit that you don't know the answer. We were talking a lot about this so far all day, but be solution oriented. It's like no roadblocks. This is a roadblock here, but I have a solution for you. So if there's a challenge, always be ready to have some sort of solution for a project. That last there right here, see? Customer service is a priority. We all have to do it in almost every job, so.
So we're always usually within a team of people working. There's the engineer, and a lot of the engineers actually come out of Oregon State University. It's a lot of engineering that happens here. So civil engineers are a big factor that we're working with all the time. They stress us out though too, because they usually might change the project right towards the very end and then say, "Oh, Francis, now you need to get it permitted based upon this redesign." I'm like, "Well, we worked on your design 3 months ago and you didn't tell us you changed it in the meantime." So there's that constant kind of struggle. But we might be working with traffic engineers, sound engineers, geotechnical people on slopes. We're part of a team. Sometimes there's land use attorneys that are involved. So we're on that team, and our job is our little sector, but we're also trying to see how all that fits into the wetlands, the streams, the endangered species, because they all might be interrelated. And we don't interject our stuff where we're not required, but if oftentimes we're there to give advice on a certain decision that has to be made on the land use process for the project design. I'll start this one. So sometimes you have to give clients the bad news. This project won't work, or you're going to spend so much money to get there, or you're going to fight these many issues to get there to get approval. Do they have the stamina and the pockets, the deep pockets to pay for that process to get to the end of that? And it's our job rather to give them all those scenarios up front. So you want them to think about it. You don't want to kill the project because you're trying to kill the project. You want to tell them these are realistic issues that you're going to have to face. So we get hired a lot of the time just for feasibilities. Some clients will spend tens of thousands of dollars just to decide whether a project is feasible or not. They'd rather spend the 10,000 and lose that rather than spend $500,000 and then lose it. So you understand why we're important in that regard.
Yeah, I think problem solving is really thinking outside of the box. All those sayings are very, very true. You need to follow a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 step process to get somewhere. This is gonna get a zigzag back, or you really got to think outside and try to get real good solutions. The last bullet point's always been Francis' favorite.
Yeah.
Never overpromise, but always over deliver. Yeah. So there's never overpromise. Sure, we'll get that for $5,000. Things that we look for. I want to say real quick above all of this, or maybe along with all of this, since we were talking a lot today. The ability to work with others, get along with others, be a strong team player. We do a 3-interview process to just see how well we kind of can hit off each other. A lot of the other stuff can be trained, it is trained. So that's really important. And then there's strong project management skills. You'd be amazed, well, maybe not for college, project management, what you do every single day. It's not career related, but everything that you're doing in every class, how you're managing all that, let alone there's a real world out there you have to live. That's project management. Keep in mind like how you can address that in like interviews and next jobs. Flexible, coachable, and then one, state.
Yeah, adaptable, flexible, coachable. We said earlier, willing to admit you made a mistake and fix it early on. The one thing you don't want to do is bury a mistake. If you made a mistake, bring your manager up in on it, and then we can fix the problem. We want to know early on. We don't like buried problems. Clients don't want that either. They can really get mad if that happens. I was also going to say something about strong team player. No, I lost it. Anyway, go on to the next one.
The last bullet point.
Yeah, remember the client who pays the bill. I had a great thought. I lost it. It'll come back.
Okay.
Trust me. Been doing this for a while. I'll say okay. Oh, now it is.
Nice.
So, like she said, like Michelle said, when you're in college, you've got 6 or 7 different periods of classes. You're just juggling those classes. Well, that's a lot like this job would be too. You're going to have 6 or 7 projects. I mean, you start out with 1 or 2, but then gradually you're doing 6 or 7. Eventually, you might be doing 15 or 20, and it's all about the critical path on every project. Because if a hearing is coming up and there's a deadline, you are going to drop everything else and get ready for that hearing. That's just how it works. It's no different from college, having to get ready for a term paper or a test or something like that. So those skills of time management are huge in consulting. And all I'll say is that you can do it in college, you can do it in our world too. All right, experience that helps. Here's the background we look for when we ask you what you bring to potentially the job. You like hiking, you like camping. A lot of this work is outdoors. You would probably, on the average, you're maybe 1/4 or 1/3 of your time in the field. The rest of the time you're in the office, or if you work out of your home or whatever, okay, you're at your desk or your computer doing paperwork and reports. But if you've got experience working in the outdoors, that's important to us. If you don't have that experience, then try to get some. We do expect you to be able to go out in rough weather, not unsafe conditions, but obviously rainy days, cold days, hot days. We all take safety as a key element, but we have to work out in a lot of different conditions. So hornets, wasps, allergies, grass pollen, tree pollen, all those things are just stuff that our employees just navigate all the time. Some of them have allergies and they have to work around it, work with it. So any outdoor experience is good. Lab work, once again, that's good, because if you can show discipline, you keep in your work space clean and operating and moving forward with a result. Public speaking, a lot of people can't stand the idea of public speaking, but sometimes you have to do it. You may have to testify to defend your project. You did the science. This is what the code was. This is how I did it. This is what my eyes saw when I was on the ground. These are what my notes are. It's not that complicated, but it makes people nervous because you're like, am I going to be cross-examined? Typically, if you're going to be cross-examined, we have an attorney there to support you, to make sure that you're not being attacked for anything that's not fair. So, and then of course, I'll let customer service skills, Michelle.
So prior to me being hired here during the interview, I do remember specifically Francis asking me, so I mean, do you get along? Wait, this is what I have to do as a server. And make sure the bartenders get my drinks sometimes, but I still the hostess has to like, so she fills my section. Back to the kitchen. Working at restaurant, back kitchen, get pretty temperamental. Yeah, you gotta get along with them, and then the boss would want them to get to your table quick. So it's a way of juggling all the personalities on people you have to deal with that do completely different things to get the same job done. So a lot of people don't put that on their resume. It's an important skill. there's some things about customer service you cannot train. Not the same thing as in consulting. And some things you just can't train, you can kind of get it or not, but like, you know, in customer service, win that job. Some of the things we thought would be, like, if you brought these into an interview, I'd be so impressed that you actually maybe researched environmental and land use processes, so you understood the basic gist or basic language of it. You could follow a project and track it through either a city or county and kind of see how it goes and what all the hearings and what all that means. Definitely learn the terminology. You come in and say, I understand what a NEPA, a JPA, with the gist of it. I would fill it out completely, but that goes a long ways. What's a setback mean? What's mitigation? Anytime we can attend a field tour with the agency, Nation Conservancy, there's mitigation banks in Washington. I know Oregon also has in loose sites and mitigation sites. Work for the consultant for a day. There's some volunteer with an invasive weed removal group, also ivy. You're out there, you ID and working in the group, trying to get the same outcome.
Yeah, so NEPA is the National Environmental Policy Act. RUE is a reasonable use exception. A lot of times our clients can't meet the code specifically for their project, and they have to go through another variance process to get approval. That means a hearing, and then you have to usually do a narrative that why that reasonable use exception should be applied. So there's more paperwork, more essay questions to answer. Let's see, JPA is joint permit application. That's in Oregon. JARPA, Joint Aquatic Resource Protection Application or Act or application. That's Washington. ESA, Endangered Species Act. Zoning, of course, that's how land use gets applied, you know, for certain properties in and around cities and rural areas. We also have a crew of two guys. We might try to grow that. We have two guys who go out and do weed whacking around our mitigation sites to keep the plants growing. Maybe they'll spray weeds. Maybe they'll do an installation. They'll plant plants. They'll put up bird boxes, signs, all sorts of things like that. Fix fencing to keep the public out of certain wildlife areas. So they're not a huge moneymaker for us, but they're a nice branch of our office. And back in the day, back in 2008, there's an economic downturn, and we had to lay off some folks. But there were some weed removal jobs that we could keep people busy on. So we had biologists and CAD people out there working grunt work. But we'd rather do that and keep them employed than have to lay them off. So people were thankful for any kind of work they could get back in those days. Next slide. So that's just our overall services, permitting, fish removal. I'll let you talk about fish removal. I'll jump down, but you can go back to fish removal. Michele runs most of the wildlife and habitat surveys. I do mostly wetlands and mitigation banking. Stormwater and erosion control, we usually do that in tandem with engineering, other engineers. We work a lot with owners of properties who are just holding their property for future use. Like say, for example, a school district owns 40 acres and they want to put a school on it someday. They own it in the meantime. Well, we help them manage it so it doesn't become invasive weeds, abandoned, and then you have, people moving in there and camping on it, that kind of stuff. We have to, because our mantra is land should not just be vacant. If you own it, you should do something with it. It should be growing timber, it should be agriculture, or if it's an open space area, that's great. But protect it in that regard and don't let it just become vacant. Because what happens is, like I said, you get a weed infestation, and then you're getting letters from the county saying, how come there's tansy ragwort on your property? You could have other people dumping stuff on your property with and then you're stuck with a cleanup. So we help people actually manage their land in the interim before they'd ever do something with it. Sure.
Fish removal, so it's a fish salvage. Right now, there's a project, East Fork Lewis River Flood Restoration Project, in northern Clark County, and they're going to go into the mainstream of the East Fork, and there's a great deal of pits also that were created from mining, where there's fish in there. And of course, there's salmon, which are endangered species, so we have to remove all the fish before they go in there with their equipment and get them moving, create channels and put in hundreds, if not thousands of pieces of large wooden bridge. I don't know if it's really interesting. But so there we go. We got our chest graders, we're in the mud, we're in the dirt. We're so happy we're out there. And we're staying in the field is better than the best day ever in the office. We're fishing, we're like go shopping them, and we're getting them very safely into a safe place. It's gonna be very exciting. There's obviously a lot of birds around there and kind of into that. Lamprey, yeah. Lots of lamprey in that silt. Wildlife and habitat, depending on the listed species, we have street-torn larks in the Willamette Valley and along the Columbia River that are listed. So you have a large client like Birdhauser or a port that has spread well sites, and you're a wildlife biologist for those birds, then you get to go do those large surveys. Some of the mitigation banks, at least one of them wants green bird surveys. There's eagles, they're protected still, so you need to go see how they're doing, what they're doing in the nest and when they're doing it. Gophers in Thurston County are listed species, so they need permits and surveying. That's the fun stuff. I will have a few examples of stuff like that too to show you. Anything else on this guy? No. Okay. This. Oh.
All right, I think these are, this was a fish removal project.
This guy's got the backpack on, shocker, everyone else is standing around him with the nets. As soon as they lower the water with pumps, as soon as it gets down to a certain level, we get all the fish out of there safely. Then they can go in there and do their work. They're just so happy to be outside. All biologists spend 75% of their time in the office. I'm not a plant person, but I think there's a bug in there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, so wormy bug. They
So
told me that.
those are the willows, ash borer.
Yeah.
No, it's not ash borer. Can't think of it right now, but not my project.
Yeah, you don't have to know. Do you want to talk about these, Francis?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So on rare occasions, we've got to work in Alaska. We have a mitigation bank that we've worked on up there, plus a limestone quarry and a couple other projects. So if you're lucky enough, like when we were able to do some field surveys and you get flown in by helicopter into some pretty awesome places. This is in Southeast Alaska. We're actually putting a protection sign up here for a mitigation conservation area that our client set aside for credit. So yeah, that's a whole different topic, mitigation credit. But so these kind of projects are, like I said, few and far between. We'd love to do more of them, but we've talked about maybe getting an office in Juneau, and we just haven't made it doing that yet. But we have lots of fun projects in Oregon, Washington too. But you don't usually get helicopter trips down here. So yeah, you did get to fly on a Learjet a few times, didn't you? Yeah.
Well, they're back.
They're back. Okay.
Yeah. This is a project on Port of Longview, and they're rebuilding a berth for commerce, and the job was to sit there for 8 to 10 hours with that equipment and just look for marine mammals. They're listed species, so pile driving, this damages their ears, so we're not supposed to harass or harm these animals. So as soon as you see one of them pop up, you call and they have to stop work. So I didn't get to see otters, but somebody saw otters out there, so they were there. This is an example, if you can see that terrain. Of course, gotta go flag things and look for any kind of habitat or corridors, or you can have a whole open lake and open water system. That's not a bird. I don't know what it is. That's a focus. Okay. These are Caroline. This is Headless Creek. I got to do 10 years of surveys out there. I got to do anything from riffle pool surveys to habitat unit surveys, largely debris surveys, bird surveys every year, 5 times a year. Hydrology surveys, invertebrate surveys, we get them, bring them back an idea. This was a great project, it was mitigation for an impact. I believe some did somewhere in the Puget Sound area. Offsite mitigation area that they did.
I think it's Schnitzer Spiel.
Schnitzer Spiel, yeah. I think it's kind of a neat story of how we got this project. It was in about 2008. We all went out there and planted, every one of us. And we got the job because Francis kind of low bid it. So we may not have got paid for everything that year, but we did so good that they hired us for the remaining of the 10 years to do all the work at our regular rate. So that's kind of an example of how you take, and we have that facility. Okay, sorry, but I mean, if you're a wildlife biologist, you just need to see the scat, you gotta poke at it, you gotta take pictures, and you have to show people you don't even know. So this is a wind turbine project. There's one wind turbine project on the Washington coast. There are 4 of them. 2 are actually in Pacific County and 2 are in Grace Harbor County. We had to do 2 years of baseline surveys, drive around all the timber roads and do survey method for birds, scan in one place for 5 to 10 minutes and write down everything you've seen here. So that's really cool. Found a whole bear skeleton except the skull. But the whole thing came back with me. It was awesome. And like it's just a scat. I think this is gonna be the same, so for Kate swallowed it, the new babies. And there's a turkey vulture up there soaring. But just an example of different terrain and different things, different those whole projects that we've had over the years. Okay.
All right. So Michelle's been highlighting all the fun wildlife stuff. Okay, so the wetland stuff can be fun. Some of it can be in between buildings in a really brushy area of a suburban area, and it's not as, you're not going to see the bald eagles flying over that wetland. So, or it might be out in the middle of cow pasture. So
Yeah.
You got to keep in mind the fun stuff happens some of the time, but not all the time. But anytime we're outdoors, we're generally pretty happy about that. This was a project in Alaska. I'm just going to highlight real quickly. Southeast Alaska here, Prince of Wales Island here, Calder Bay was around the corner here in this 1,200 acre privately held property was owned by Columbia River Carbonates. They were thinking, well, do we log it because it has second growth timber on it? Do we sell it for lots? And I said, wow, well, Alaska needs a mitigation bank in that area. So let's post that. So we went out there and did an inventory. And you do the next slide. I did an inventory. So we found a major stream system, El Capitan Creek, with tributaries, wonderful peat bogs that drain into the stream system, and logging roads had been put back in the 80s over those peat bogs. So we proposed removing those logging roads for mitigation, clean up a lot of the site. In Alaska, nothing gets hauled off. So you can literally go, every few hundred feet and find an empty plastic container, where the loggers, after they used gas and oil in their chainsaws, they just left the container and went back to the truck and they got a new one the next day. So there's that all over the place. Leftover barrels, they're empty, truck parts, tires. So cleanup is a big part of this site. This El Capitan Creek has an amazing fish run, pink salmon and other salmon species, very healthy bear population. So we got this preserved with the restoration credits as well. And so people doing projects in Southeast Alaska can buy mitigation credits here if they're impacting a wetland or a stream. And this has been a great project. It's kind of typical of mitigation banks we've been working on. I think we're working on 12 in Washington that we've either worked on or working on now, and this one in Alaska. You do one more slide. A couple more. This is just one part of Trillium in the very southeast corner. We had to put a new road around this property here, because this property owner said, no more access. I don't want you going into the mitigation bank through our property. So we had to go to the Forest Service, get approval to go make it around them, and it worked out fine, but it took a while. And that's kind of a typical of our drawings that we have to prepare. Our CAD department makes us look amazing. The CAD people do our work. The biologists do the field work. The CAD people make it look pretty on paper, and that's huge. Most of our reports we turn in, to be honest, people reviewing them don't review what we wrote. They look to the back and they look at the pictures. So, and they look at the maps. So when you have good stuff done well, it truly is pictures with 1,000 words. And there's just another, that's the same drawing without the aerial photo of it. So we had a little bit of impacts here with this road crossing some wetlands. So mitigated at the bank by debiting credits out of there. Next slide. That's really close to that. That's this is the terrain in Southeast Alaska, just near the mitigation bank, and you can see the. I was impressed with the spruce trees giving off pollen during a windstorm. So just clouds of it, yellow. It's very amazing. And then this is some of the regulators who we met at the mouth of the creek where it comes out into the estuary, talking about improving the salmon run, trying to take some culverts out of the stream. So we get to work on some projects like this, which are really enjoyable. And they do offset sometimes when you see a lot of land developed, which we see. The mitigation banks are a great way to rebuild our soul as we move forward. A couple more. This is one of our projects, the limestone quarry in Prince of Wales. We helped them get the permits to put this marine terminal in Woodland, Washington on the Columbia River. It took us about 10 years to get that permitted, because 2 or 3 years were because neighbors opposed it, although the zoning was for industrial. So we got through those appeals, and our client put in a very expensive offloading facility. Let's see, when they started the process to do the permitting on that, the bids came back to build this thing at $6 million. Okay, fast forward 10 years later, the actual cost was 40 million. That's what delay in permitting can cost applicants, because inflation and all other crazy things that happen in an economy in between. So we're really proud of this project because we did shoreline restoration for it. They built a park upriver from here, set land aside, and they're an awesome client. They pay all their bills, and they've done a mitigation bank on the site. So those are the kind of clients we love to have. There's just a couple more. Mitigation bank at Long Beach. I'm a part owner in that. That's a preservation and enhancement bank. Next slide. When I got the bank approved, the Corps of Engineers said, okay, on year 7, after you've implemented this, we want you to get an aerial photo of it. I'm like, okay, well, that means, so that was back at, 15 years ago. I thought, oh, well, that means I got to hire an airplane to go fly it. Well, drone technology comes online more recently, and so that was just done with a drone. We have drone services in our company now. That's what that mitigation bank looks like. All right, questions? Comments? Thank you.
I was curious because you guys talked about like an entry level position and stuff, and then you mentioned how you had like a sort of like a GIS team and then like a fieldwork team. Do those things ever coincide at all? Like in the entry level position?
The CAD department?
Yeah.
Entry level, can you also work at entry level CAD as well as in the field?
Yeah, I'm just curious
Actually,
what that looks like.
Right now, we have somebody who started out helping a biologist, so she did field work and she did reporting, but she really likes the CAD work. So that's what she likes to do, so we gave her that, that's what she does now all the time. It's kind of, we're big on if that's your niche and you are able to do it, then that's more important than doing what you like to do. Then stay with us long. That's our goal. So, we'll do that.
We're gonna add to that. Also, the fieldwork side of it, like the maintenance crew or the landscaping crew, we've had biologists, Sean, for example, he came on as a biologist and he goes. I'm just not much for paperwork. I'd much rather just work on the field crew every day. So that's what he's been doing. So we may lose him because he comes from a family of longshoremen and they get paid really well. So he's probably going to move to a longshoreman job. But in the meantime, while he's waiting to get called into longshoreman work, he's still working for us. So we're happy to keep him. We've had biologists go out and help, deal with weed control. And we've had our field crew come out and help us do delineations and fish removal when we need run for helpers. So in a small company like us, when we need you to do whatever it's gonna be done, hopefully you can step up and help us out. So, but if you have a specific interest, we're willing to accommodate that to the extent we can, Thank you.
I'm Larry Becker. I recently retired environmental science director. I just wanted to follow that because it seemed like there might be a little bit of a vocabulary difference here. You're using CAD in biology. And I'd like you to explain, is this biology with a lowercase b? In other words, you don't have to have a degree necessarily in biology, because many students here might have a degree in environmental sciences or other degrees, but they have background in ecology, ecosystems, and field work and GIS mapping.
That's a great thing to point out. I'm glad you did. We use the term biology loosely. So we take people who have a geography degree. We'll take people who have a chemistry degree. If you have a 4-year degree and a work ethic, that's what we're looking for. So, and we can pretty much train you on the job to go forward. We have a lot of marine biologists who don't get work in marine settings and they might be working on freshwater wetlands. That's just the nature of it. Yeah, like Chloe out of our Bremerton office, she just loves the CAD. And when I say CAD, it's most of our CAD work is drawings for permitting, or reports, monitoring studies, that kind of stuff, and then incorporating GIS and photos. Nowadays, so in the old days when I started this business, I could literally write a delineation on a 2-page letter and a map or 2 attached, and that was good. Okay, agencies accepted that. Now most of them are like 30 pages, and they include 7 sets of maps, wetland ratings, a whole bunch of text, data sheets. So those days, I've seen the science come a long way in the documentation. Now, you ask me, there's not that much more information that we're providing now than we did then. It's still a wetland, and here's where it's at. It's still, it's still the issue, but just the regulations are now that you have to be way more detailed in your work. So yeah, I hope I answered your question. So, but we do want people, if we do hire a lot of entry-level people, that's our preference. We would like you to have a 4-year degree or at least be close to it. If we know you're really good and you've got an AA degree and you're working on your bachelor, doesn't mean we would not hire you, but we would expect within a certain amount of time you would get your sheepskin, is that what they used to call it? Yeah. your diploma.
I think that's all. Like I am an environmental science major, and that's a very broad thing. Like you guys talked about like experiences you would apply for a job like this. Did you have any recommendations, like classes or introduction? School that would be done? I'm thinking I haven't been in school for so long. That's policy and you. That's one.
Well, it just so happens my degree is in environmental studies. So, and then I have a master's in environmental studies. So within that, I did some botany, soils, ecology, mycology, mushrooms of the Pacific Northwest. I went to Evergreen, so we had these kind of fun programs. But like at Evergreen, we had a class project where on one of our programs for 2 whole quarters, we worked with a nonprofit group to help them establish a farm for their inner city kids. So we worked on all the permitting for that, how to manage their property. So those are experiential education kind of things. If you can take environmental classes and get some of that experience. Because environmental, I guess it depends on how the classes are set up, but in my mind, an environmental studies degree means that you're really kind of taking all of that into account. And that's a benefit from our perspective, because we kind of think that's kind of how you have to do your work anyway. And my strength is probably plants in botany, but my biggest strength now is, just kind of understanding how land works, understanding how clients work, understanding how the laws work. So that's more environmental than it is just plants in themselves. Oh. Question? No, okay.
I was wondering with your clientele, like when you're looking at mitigation plans, do they ever bring up, or do you guys work with them on like CDR or like carbon credit stuff? Is that something that they're interested in and you guys have expertise in or look for?
Most of the properties we've dealt with are not large enough probably to qualify for carbon credits, just because it's they typically want some offsets like timberland or whatever they could do, but we've thought about it. We know of some landowners in Alaska who've done that, so that might be an up and coming thing. We are starting to see, so you got a mitigation bank for wetlands. We're working on a couple Oregon white oak mitigation banks in Washington, because they're very, very common down here, but they're not so common in Washington. Now they're protected, especially around urban areas. So we're setting up, we've set up one oak bank already, and now we're doing another one. And then there's other rare plants that are starting to be of interest, where we could potentially work with landowners to set their land aside, and they could sell credits for preserving that property. So what you have to do is you have to prove there's a threat to the property of development or logging or farming, and then preserve it. And then you get credits, create credits that way, that kind of offsets the land being set aside like that. But the presumption is it's protected in the future, and you're not letting the weeds come in and take it over. So there's ongoing management maintenance too. So, yeah.
You mentioned a lot of like permitting stuff. Is there like kind of a limit to what you do with permitting, or we just permit about anything that comes across your table? No.
Critical areas. So anything with wetlands, streams, habitat and wildlife. There's whatever it takes, whatever rights are available, and wherever the client needs to be able to do whatever they need to on the property. And no limits to.
Yeah, but we don't just explain it like if it's a noise permit or air quality.
No.
You're right, yeah.
Critical areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, there, you don't do noise with traffic. Yeah, so all of their set of consultants. Or we also are involved in environmental cleanup.
Right.
Yeah.
But an example is like yesterday, we have a project, the marine terminal project. They will now want to expand some of their operation to have another stockpile for the limestone. And they want to be able to offload that material, not just Monday through Friday, but on a Saturday, actually too. So that means noise standards could be different, and they're working with a noise specialist on that. But we're listening in because we're helping them get prepared for the hearing. And we know the attorney really well is helping them get ready for the hearing, which I think is actually tomorrow. So in that regard, we're just listening in and we're learning, and we can actually bill our time for our work, but we're also giving advice on the planner, because we know the planner really well. We also know the hearing examiner, and we know that person's history. So even though I'm not a sound expert, I know what the hearing examiner is going to ask. The hearing expert or the sound expert. So we cross-pollinate a lot of the time. And I've gotten to where I've seen enough properties where if I see a problem that's an engineering problem, I'll let the client know. This is not my area of expertise, but you need an expert in engineering to help you figure this out. Because if you don't, a lot of people buy property, they don't know what they're getting into. So once again, feasibility.
So Francis, a lot of what I hear you talking about is your relationship building skills come in, it's very relevant, right? How might undergraduate students begin to get the courage to build their network? Reaching out to professionals, what advice do you have?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like I said, if there's an environmental study group or, even a, you know, nonprofit, that work on restoring properties or something, I think there's, the Nature Conservancy is one, get some experience with a group like that. Despite the politics of whatever they're doing, if they're setting land aside and they're buying it for fair value from somebody, that's a good thing. So, land trusts, find out from a land trust what they're doing. Go online and see in any of the counties, see if there's a website that says when there's a hearing for a project, because a lot of these decisions are land use hearings. And just, you don't have to testify, just go online and listen in, and you'll hear testimony from the applicant, you'll hear testimony from the planner who's reviewing it. You might hear testimony from somebody from the state. You'll hear the hearing examiner or the planning commissioner, whoever they are, listen to testimony. The goal is to have impartial decisions. That's what the law requires. A lot of times, small towns, if it's a planning commission, they all know each other. It's hard sometimes to get impartial decisions because they don't like that guy, because they know him, or he's got a history. I've seen that happen. But get some experience just understanding the language and what happens in the community for. And if you came to one of our interviews and you said, well, I actually listened to 3 or 4 hearings and I learned something, or I was confused by this or that, well, write those questions down, because then that shows that you're interested in trying to build that knowledge base.
And there was a question online, does the environmental cleanup side include water quality monitoring and chemical sampling?
It can, we collect samples sometimes. We have Lynn Simpson who can do water quality sampling. If it gets to a higher level of analysis, we expect you to farm that out to maybe a water quality specialist or a hydrogeologist or something like that. So we can do some of that, but more on the light side, especially if it's a minor contaminant issue. But if somebody has had underground storage tanks seeping into the ground or whatever on a site, that's not our, we call those dirty dirt experts. So they're going to go in there and figure out how to do a cleanup. I think we had one site where there was a wrecking yard next door to a site. Client paid us to go get some samples in the wetlands on our site just to make sure none of the oils and you know, hydraulic fluids or whatever across the ground. We didn't find anything in the wetlands. We had to take it to a lab. So that was just a check to make sure that they weren't finding a problem.
As far as networking and relationship building, I think something I learned very early on, and it's kind of a side here, but is just wherever you go, if you go to any of those places that Francis just mentioned, go to volunteering work, just chat with people. That's it. That's building a relationship. The next time you see them and the same similar thing, oh yeah, hi, how are you? Even if we go to conferences or go to market, but I was told just say hi, how are you? Talk about the weather, talk about the beavers, about whatever. So that's just to relax and just be yourself.
Like restaurant service,
Right? Exactly. Any other questions? We have time, I don't know.
Yeah, we're running short on time, but yeah, any last questions?
Here's an example of like you're on a project where just have a lot of experience challenges. And a lot of work around problem solving.
Like half the time. Yeah.
Every single one.
Well, a lot of our clients are type A personalities. They don't like details. They like big picture and they just want to get it done. They leave the details to us. As long as they pay their bills, I'm fine doing all the details for them. But they just, yeah, so there are problem clients, and we've worked for a lot of problem clients and kept them basically out of jail because they've done the, you know, they paid us to kind of help them navigate the rules. But at some point, if they're too much of a bad actor, we have to let them go. We're not gonna ruin our reputation because of their bad behaviors. A lot of times the governments are happy that we're trying to help that client out, get out of trouble. Because they don't want to deal with him or her. But there's a point where we've had some bad clients in the past, not bad, we've had some uninformed clients in the past, but we've got better informed and then they did better. So, yeah, but
We have a strong support system. So
Yes.
when that happens, you're not alone.
right,
We're all helping each other out.
yeah. And there's just some clients that you kind of like, but they're kind of crazy. And I mean, so, but you're okay with that because, you know, I have a family, I have family members who are crazy. So I mean, it's like, you just deal with it. It's life. And as long as they pay their bills, that's the most important thing. Hey, that's a great question though. All right. So,
I guess I was just wondering, do you guys do any work for like, the government, federal government, state or tribe, or is it just, land developers?
it's probably
Is it land?
It's probably 2/3 private and maybe 1/3 public. We do work for cities, counties, school districts, ports. We've gotten jobs with tribes before. Sometimes federal government, but usually we're working as a subcontractor of another company. Sometimes working for the state of Washington, for example, is difficult because they have such rules about contracting. And it's like, it's almost more trouble than it's worth. But big companies do chase that work because those are big contracts. We're 35 people. I don't know if we want to hire a bunch of administrative people just to keep all the paperwork straight. It gets complicated. So, but yeah, we work for public all the time. Okay. Might see some of you guys later.
Yes, all right. Thank you everyone for being here. We have Bird 193 available for a reception. I thought there was gonna be a class in here at 2 o'clock, but it kind of doesn't look like it. So in that case, we might be able to stay here. But thank you all for coming today, and let's just give our presenters another round of applause. I think it's a good time to do this. And great rest of your day.